What's up, everybody? Y'all know what it is. Welcome back to Trey for 3. Back today with another NFL Weekly Review. This time reviewing Week 6 of the 2022 season and giving my predictions for Week 7 as well. Let's get into it, starting with the Washington Commanders, who are now at 2-4 in their 12-7 victory over the Chicago Bears on Thursday Night Football. It was a game that was so ugly that I thought the Broncos were playing, honestly. The highlight of that game was Brian Robinson Jr., who in his second career game scored his first career touchdown just months after having suffered a gunshot wound to the leg in a robbery attempt prior to the season. He stepped right into that running back one role, with former running back one Antonio Gibson falling in and out of favor with the Commanders coaching staff. It seems like he's going to be assuming that role full time. He finished the game with 17 carries for 60 yards and a touchdown. The Commanders didn't have any receiving touchdowns on the day. In fact, their leading receiver had 41 yards, and the next best receiver only had 23. Carson Wentz, their quarterback, finished on the day 12 of 22 for 99 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. After the game, he said his finger was a bit sore after hitting it on a helmet. Turns out he broke that finger and had to have surgery on it in the following days, meaning that he will be out for at least a few games. Justin Fields didn't fare much better in the production department, though. He finished 14 of 27, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but led his team in rushing with 88 yards on 12 carries. The Bears are heading to Foxborough next to play the New England Patriots, and the Commanders are going to be playing host to a desperate Packers team coming off back-to-back losses to the New York Squads. The game that I was dreading talking about so much so that it was actually the last one that I wrote info on for this script. The Baltimore Ravens fell to the now 5-1 New York Giants by a score of 24-20 in East Rutherford, New Jersey. It was another ugly loss for the Ravens where they gave up the lead in the second half, though this one wasn't as sizable. This time it was a Lamar Jackson interception on their own side of the field after forcing a pass on a broken play caused by a mistimed snap. Then on the following drive, Lamar fumbled on a sack that also occurred on their side of the field, and the Giants recover once again in plus territory. The Giants win another close one to improve to 5-1, like I said, and it seems like those types of wins are just becoming their specialty, honestly. Daniel Jones finished 19 of 27, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Lamar Jackson on the other side went 17 of 32, 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. J.K. Dobbins was injured in the game, and it actually just came out after I finished writing the script for this game that he is going to be having arthroscopic surgery on his knee and will be out 4 to 6 weeks. On the original script, I noted that it would be interesting to see how the carries were split in the next game between he and Kenyon Drake, given that Kenyon Drake had an awesome game and outgained him by 3 carries, 10 carries to 7. Speaking of Drake and that awesome game, he finished with 10 carries for 119 yards and a touchdown. So now he and Justice Hill will be the main 2 backs for the foreseeable future until Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are once again ready to get back onto the field. The Ravens are back in Baltimore next to face the Cleveland Browns, and the Giants are heading to Jacksonville to face off against the Jags. The 49ers took a tough L in Atlanta when they faced the now 3-3 Atlanta Falcons and lost by a score of 28-14. Marcus Mariota put those Falcons on his back, finishing 13 of 14, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and also had 6 rushes for 50 yards and a touchdown. It was a rough day for Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners offense. Garoppolo finished 29 of 41, 296 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Both of San Francisco's touchdowns came in the second quarter. Couldn't finish drives after that point. They're going to be hoping to bounce back in a tough home matchup versus the Chiefs, who themselves are trying to bounce back following a loss this past week. And then biggest piece of news to come out of this past week for the 49ers actually was at the beginning of week 7, which again occurred right before I recorded this video. The San Francisco 49ers have agreed to a trade for the superstar running back of the Carolina Panthers, Christian McCaffrey, who also in my original script I mentioned that prior to last week's Week 6 game, there were reports that had came out confirming that McCaffrey was indeed on the trade block, but that it would take significant compensation in order to get him off of the Carolina Panthers, and the 49ers were willing to give up that significant compensation and did. So like I said, they're going to be having Christian McCaffrey with them as they host the Kansas City Chiefs in their next game. The Atlanta Falcons are going to be heading to Cincinnati to face the Cincinnati Bengals next. The New England Patriots traveled to Cleveland to face those Cleveland Browns and came out of that one with a 38-15 win over the now 2-4 Browns. That win was the 324th win of Bill Belichick's career, which now puts him tied for second place on the all-time career wins list. So shout out to Coach B. Speaking of B, Bailey Zappi, his quarterback who's been playing in replacement for Mac Jones, who's dealing with a high ankle sprain, had himself a day in his second career start, going 24 of 34, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. With Damian Harris, the starting running back, out, Ramondre Stevenson stepped into that role and went 19 carries for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jacoby Brissett on the other side of the field at quarterback went 21 of 45, 266 yards, 1 touchdown, but 2 interceptions. On top of that, it was the worst game of the season for Nick Chubb, who finished with 12 carries for 56 yards. And the Browns are going to be hoping to bounce back as they travel, like I said, to Baltimore this week to face those Ravens. And the Pats are going to be playing host to the Chicago Bears next on Monday Night Football. The New York Jets, the other of the two red-hot New York teams, got another upset this week, this time against the Green Bay Packers, who are coming off, like I said, another upset loss of their own last week against the New York Giants in London. So they are now coming off back-to-back losses to the New York squads. Definitely hoping to turn things around. Rodgers went on the day 26 of 41, 246 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. A.J. Dillon had 1 more carry than Aaron Jones for twice as many yards. Robert Tonyan led both teams in targets, receptions, and yards with 10 receptions on 12 targets for 90 yards. Shout out to Breece Hall, who's continuing his hot streak. The rookie running back for the New York Jets, he finished with 20 carries for 116 yards and a touchdown. The Packers are going to be heading to D.C., actually Largo, Maryland, to play the Commanders, and they are desperate for a win. The Jets hope to continue their win streak and keep those hopes alive as they travel to Denver to play against a struggling Broncos team. The Jacksonville Jaguars traveled to Indianapolis and fell to the Indianapolis Colts by a score of 34-27. Matt Ryan finally getting into the swing of things. He went 42 of 58 for the Colts for 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Michael Pittman went for 13 receptions on 16 targets for 134 yards. 10 receptions for running back Deion Jackson for the Colts, who had 12 carries to go along with it. It was a hard-fought game, but through 6 weeks, the Jags' record is now starting to look more like what people were expecting it to be at the start of the year. Trevor Lawrence went 20 of 22, 165 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Travis Etienne had 2 less carries than James Robinson, but had 32 more yards on those carries. The Jags are back at home to face those 5-1 Giants, and the Colts are heading to Tennessee to face the divisional rival Titans, who are coming off of a bye week. The Vikings are 5-1 as well after winning 24-16 in Miami against that struggling Miami Dolphins team. Miami is now on a 3-game losing streak in their games without Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, as he still deals with a concussion. Teddy Bridgewater, his backup, who himself was dealing with a bit of a concussion, ended up entering this game in the first half to replace their injured third-string quarterback, Skylar Thompson, who went down with an injury. Skylar Thompson finished on the day 23 of 34 for 329. Teddy Bridgewater did that, 23 of 34 for 329, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tyreek Hill, the Cheetah, finished with 12 receptions on 15 targets for 177 yards, and his running mate, Jalen Waddle, went for 6 receptions on 10 targets for 129 yards. Though none of that seemed to be enough, thanks in large part to the fact that the Minnesota defense had 6 sacks of the Miami Dolphins quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, the quarterback for the Vikings, had a solidly average day, going 20 for 30 for 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. His main guy, Justin Jefferson, had 6 receptions on 8 targets for 107 yards, and the Vikings are feeling good sitting at 5-1 heading into that bye week. The Dolphins, on the other hand, hoping to end their 3-game streak when the Steelers come to town next. Speaking of people coming to town, the Saints faced the Bengals when they came marching into the Superdome, and in the battle of who dat versus who they, the road team, the Cincinnati Bengals, ended up coming out of that one with a victory by the score of 30-26. The Saints now fall to 2-4 in the year, while the Bengals get back to 500 at 3-3. It was a bit of a back-and-forth affair that came down to the final quarter. Joe Burrow finished 28 for 37 with 300 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, though he was sacked 2 times. His main man, Jamar Chase, went 7 receptions on 10 targets for 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Andy Dalton on the other side of the field finished 17 of 32 for 162 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. There were some reports that Dalton could play himself into the starting job with a well-played game, and this one didn't inspire much confidence, honestly. No Saints receiver had 45 yards or more receiving. Their leading receiver had 43 yards. And on a short week with a lot of injuries, it may not bode well for the Saints as they travel on the road to Arizona to play in Thursday Night Football. The Bengals, on the other hand, are going to be playing host to the Atlanta Falcons next on Sunday. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were on the wrong side of what was perhaps the biggest upset of the week as they traveled to Pittsburgh to face a rebuilding, to say the least, Pittsburgh Steelers squad. They came out of that game with a surprise loss. The Steelers beat them by a score of 20-18, snapping their 4-game losing streak. Kenny Pickett went 11 of 18, 67 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, but entered the concussion protocol in the third quarter, and it was Mitchell Trubisky who finished the game with 9 completions on 12 attempts for 144 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. The greatest quarterback ever on the other side went 25 of 40 for 243 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Shout out to Chase Claypool and Chris Godwin, who had their best games of the year, leading receivers for their respective teams. The Steelers head to South Beach next, hoping to keep the momentum going. And the Buccaneers are going to be heading to Carolina, hoping to get what should be a relatively easy win against a flailing Carolina Panthers team that also just got rid of their best player. But it's honestly hard to call anything an easy win this season. Speaking of those Panthers, like I said, they are continuing to struggle and flounder, and the most recent episode of that was against the Los Angeles Rams in L.A., where they fell to the score of 24-10 to also fall to 1-5 on the year. News came out prior to the game, like I was saying earlier, that the Panthers were fielding calls for CMC, and then before we could even get a week later into it, those rumors and talks not only came to fruition, but bore extreme fruits when the San Francisco 49ers finalized a trade to acquire Christian McCaffrey for an impressive haul of draft picks. But anyways, it was an unimpressive game for P.J. Walker in his first start with the Panthers, with their top 3 guys all injured. Prior to him going out with an injury of his own in the fourth quarter, he went 10 of 16 for 60 yards, no touchdown, no interception. On the other side, it was an average game for Matt Stafford, who went 26 for 33, 253 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Cam Akers, the running back, is officially on the block and sat out the game for that reason. In his stead, Darrell Henderson went 12 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown as the lead back. It was also the first touchdown since week 1 for Allen Robinson, the wide receiver who the Los Angeles Rams acquired from the Chicago Bears this offseason. The Rams are heading into the bye week at 500, hoping to get things going when they return. And like I said, the Panthers are at home against Tom B and the Bucs. The Cardinals and the Seahawks played in a bit of an interesting game. The Seahawks came out victorious in a home matchup by a score of 19-9. They get back to 500 at 3-3, where the Cardinals fall to 2-4. It was a mediocre day for Geno Smith. He went 20 of 30 for 197 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. But rookie running back Kenneth Walker helped lead them to a victory with 21 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. Kyler Murray on the other sideline went 23 for 37, 222 yards, no touchdowns, one interception, and was sacked 6 times. His number one receiver up until this point, Hollywood Brown, went down with an ankle injury and is going on injury reserve, meaning he'll miss at least the next 4 games. That couldn't have come at a better time, though, honestly. There was definitely some worse times when that injury could have occurred because in their next game, DeAndre Hopkins, their true number one receiver, returns. And with the Cards on a short week at home versus New Orleans on Thursday Night Football, they could certainly use him. The Seahawks themselves traveled to Los Angeles to play the LA Chargers on Sunday. In the game that proved to be the game of the week and lived up to the hype for the most part, the Buffalo Bills came into Kansas City and came out with a 24-20 win over Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bills improved to 5-1 while the Chiefs fall to 4-2. It wasn't as high scoring, but it proved to be another thriller. Josh Allen threw the game-winning pass to Dawson Knox with just over a minute left in the game. And then Patrick Mahomes was intercepted on the ensuing drive, his second of the game, which all but sealed it. He finished 25 of 40, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Juju Smith-Schuster caught all 5 of his targets for 113 yards and a touchdown. Josh Allen is continuing to make his MVP case. He finished 27 of 40, 329 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Stephon Diggs, his number one guy, had 10 receptions on 13 targets for 148 yards and a touchdown. It was the ideal outcome for the Bills heading into the bye week, and the Chiefs are heading into California to face those 49ers who just acquired Christian McCaffrey, hoping to bounce back in a tough road matchup. In Sunday Night Football, the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles managed to still stay undefeated in their matchup against the undefeated backup quarterback Cooper Rush. They won by a score of 26-17 at home in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts finished 15 of 25 for 155 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, with those 2 touchdown passes going on passes to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Cooper Rush himself had 3 interceptions on the night, to go with 18 completions on 38 attempts for 181 yards, 1 touchdown. So less than 50% completion percentage and 3 interceptions for Cooper Rush. That one loss was all it took for him to close the case on if he should continue to be the starting quarterback when Dak Prescott is fully healthy and ready to go. And it looks like that will not be the case, and Dak will step right back into his number one role this coming week. But on a positive note, Ezekiel Elliott did have himself a bit of a game with 13 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown. Like I said, Dak Prescott is going to be making his return this week as the Cowboys play a tough Lions squad in Dallas. And the Eagles are heading into their bye week sitting pretty at 6-0, hoping to come out of that bye week and keep the streak going. In Monday Night Football, the last game of the week, the Denver Broncos fell in overtime to the Los Angeles Chargers by a score of 19-16. Jay Herbo and the Chargers' offensive struggles continue and they themselves put the Broncos in another close game, somewhat ugly game too, that the Broncos could have won but didn't. Jay Herbo finished on the day 37 of 57 for 238 yards, no touchdown, 1 interception. Austin Eckler had 10 receptions of his own to go with 14 carries for 83 yards. Russell Wilson on the other side is playing through an injury and continuing to have lackluster performances. This time it was on 15 completions on 28 attempts, 188 yards, 1 touchdown, no interception. Latavius Murray far outcarried the other running backs in his first game as a Bronco. Melvin Gordon, the guy who was believed to be the running back one heading into this game, only had 3 carries for 8 yards. But it was announced after the game that he would be running back one for their next game as they host the surging Jets. So you have to believe that Latavius probably just got all those touches to see where he falls in the pecking order with the current healthy running backs. On the other side, though, the Chargers are going to be hosting the Seahawks, like I mentioned earlier, in a potential high-scoring affair. And with that, that is all the games that we had to cover from Week 6 in the NFL season. And I'm going to go ahead and jump right into my predictions for Week 7, where we had the Cardinals. I have winning at home versus the Saints. I have the Ravens winning at home versus the Browns. Bengals get the win at home versus the Falcons. My edgy pick of the week is a Lions victory on the road against the Cowboys in Dallas. I think the Colts get a win on the road against the Titans. Packers win on the road against the Commanders. Bucks win on the road against the Panthers. Jags win at home versus the Giants. That's another upset. The Jets win at the Broncos. The Raiders are going to win at home versus the Texans. Chargers win at home versus the Seahawks, though I almost picked the Seahawks in that one. The Chiefs are going to get a win on the road at the San Francisco 49ers, and what should be an interesting game. The Dolphins are going to win against the Steelers at home on Sunday Night Football, and the Bears are going to get the win in Foxborough on Monday Night Football this week. Those are my predictions, so check them out after the week and see exactly how well I did. I will mention my Week 6 predictions in another video, and we can discuss those. But that's all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know your thoughts, what you thought about what I had to talk about today, and also give me your feedback, what you would like to see more of, what you would like to experience on the channel, and give me your thoughts and predictions on Week 6 and Week 7 of the NFL season. I appreciate you all. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also subscribe and become a patron of mine on Patreon. That's how you support me the most. All the proceeds from there go directly to me, which directly fund the channel and don't go to anywhere else but the funding of the channel. Find me on patreon.com at Trey43. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at the same name, at Trey43. I'm available on any. We can chop it up, talk about whatever you may want to. I love to hear from the fans and any of my supporters. And until I see you guys next time on the next episode, I'm out. This is Trey 43.